Hello and welcome. My name is Charles Wright. In this video, we'll be exploring two educational theories, the cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia. The premise of the cognitive load theory is people have a limited amount of working memory. So if we're teaching a topic, we have to be aware of these limitations while also minimizing distractions. There are 5 assumptions in the cognitive load theory. First is information store, which says that long-term memory can hold a large amount of information. And when we're teaching, the goal is to change the long-term memory. Borrowing and reorganizing says that interacting with people helps us learn by combining and comparing existing knowledge. Randomness as genesis says when people don't know the answer to a problem, they try something and respond to the feedback they receive. Narrow limits of change says that working memory is limited. People can only manipulate about 2 to 4 ideas at a time. Working memory also determines what knowledge is important enough to be moved to long-term memory. Environmental organizing and linking says a place or environment the person is in can also link a memory or generate an action. The 2 types of memory we're going to be dealing with are working memory and long-term memory. The working memory capacity is limited to about 4 new pieces of information and about 5 to 9 total pieces of information. Long-term memory is basically unlimited, so even though the working memory is very limited, once we transfer information to long-term memory, it tends to stay there. Information comes in through sensory memory into working memory. Within working memory, we decide what new information is important. Then we fit that information into a schema and then move that schema into long-term memory. There are 3 load conditions in the cognitive load theory. The intrinsic cognitive load is how complex the material is for the individual learner caused by interacting elements in the learner's experience with the material. A problem with a car could be very simple to deal with for a mechanic, but could be very complicated for someone who doesn't work on cars because of all the interacting parts that could be causing the problem. Extraneous cognitive load is any distractions through the way the content is presented. So if the person is talking too fast, or the text is hard to read, or the video starts flashing, all of these distractions take up precious working memory and the space that we need for the content we're presenting. Germane cognitive load is the effective load on the learner when you add together intrinsic and extraneous cognitive load. The cognitive theory of multimedia premise states that students learn better through images and words together compared to words alone. And active learners go through 3 steps to process new information. The 3 assumptions of the cognitive theory of multimedia are, first, the dual channel assumption, which says that people learn better with words and pictures than from words alone. This is where the term multimedia comes in the name of the theory, because words and images in any form constitute multimedia. The limited capacity is referring to the working memory and is the same as the cognitive load theory we talked about before. Working memory is limited to about 4 new pieces of information and about 5 to 9 total pieces of information. The active processing assumption says that learners select the most important words and images between sensory and working memory. Then they organize those words and images in the working memory and finally bring the words and images together with prior knowledge to integrate the learning into long-term memory. Both of these theories deal with working memory, its limitations, and how students process information into long-term memory. Both of these theories say that you should limit distractions because it takes away from working memory. The cognitive theory of multimedia deals with pictures and words, how students have 2 channels to process both pictures and words, and how those channels are then combined in integration. The cognitive theory of multimedia also assumes we're dealing with a motivated learner for the active processing assumption. I hope this quick video gave you an overview of the cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia and how they are similar and different.